So we have to start with a concept that I call principle. Now, principles are natural laws. Like gravity, for example. You never get up in the morning and think, oh, I wonder if gravity's on today. It always is. So notice that, and this is what I'm referring to when I talk about principles, these natural laws that determine all of life's outcomes. And I've got a little demonstration for you. This is going to blow your mind. Okay, this is a steel ring. It's a welded 2-inch ring. I'm going to let go of it. Now, which direction do you think it's going to go? Yeah, you're pretty sure, aren't you? Why are you so sure? Why do you think you know it's going to... Would you be totally surprised if it did something else? Okay, watch. Are you watching? Not surprised? Yeah, why are you not surprised? Because you know about gravity, don't you? You've got experience with gravity, and you know exactly what's going to happen. You can predict it based on principle. Okay, let's try a little something else. What if I were to first put this ring on this chain, like this? Now what's going to happen when I drop it? Well, let's see what happens. Wait a minute. What? Did that surprise you? Most people are a little surprised when they see that happen. Now, what is this? Is this magic? I've got a colleague who has a t-shirt that says, I'm a psychologist, not a magician, which I kind of get a kick out of. Is this magic? Is it luck? No, I'm not a magician. I'm a psychologist. There are principles that determine that outcome. When I apply those principles, I get a specific outcome. What would happen if you knew what I know? So think about that for a moment. And if you were here in the office, I could walk you through the steps of doing this. And you would be able to do it as well. Why? Well, it's not magic, it's not luck, it's principle. This is probably the most important thing that we have to start with, because principles determine all of life's outcomes. Whether we're aware of them is a different conversation. Whether we apply them, well, that's a different conversation as well. The principles are consistent. And as we learn and apply those principles in our life, we get a whole different outcome. Now, I've been studying psychology for a long time. I've been practicing psychology for, at the time of this filming, 23 years, give or take. What would happen if you knew what I know? And I got to tell you, having a psychology practice is the best spectator sport in the world. I get to observe people's lives, and I've been paying attention to what works and what doesn't. What are the principles that allow us to have a different outcome? In our mental health, for example, our happiness, our relationships, our finances. Principles apply to every aspect of life. And as we understand those principles, we can get a whole different outcome. So, with that in mind, you know what? I think the thing that I love the most about my job is that I get to illuminate the obvious. Now think about that for a minute. Illuminating the obvious. I get paid to tell people things they already know, or to show them things that they already see. But there's a lot of obvious things that are unnoticed. Obvious but unnoticed. Let's go there for a minute. Your shirt, for example. Can you feel it? Yeah, you can, right? Is it obvious? Sure. But you didn't notice it until I called it to your attention. Or the fact that we're speaking English. Did you notice? Right, it's obvious, but unnoticed until I call it to your attention. Many of the processes in our own mind are obvious as soon as they're called to your attention, but unnoticed right up until that point. So one of the first principles that I would love to call to your attention is called metacognition. Metacognition, think about that. That's a made-up word. In psychology, we love to make up words. It makes us feel smart. And this is one of them. Metacognition, when you break it down, cognition means thinking. Metacognition is a higher level. It's thinking about thinking. Thinking about thinking is a higher level. And I'm going to ask you to go there. While we go through this course, see if you can keep that turned on. And notice that you can do this. This is obvious, but it was unnoticed until I called it to your attention. You can think about your own thinking. Now be careful with this, it'll drive you nuts. But this is also what gives us the opportunity to accomplish some really cool things. Metacognition creates a space. In that space is where choice exists. And that's going to be really, really important as we look at some of the other processes that are going on in your own mind. So I invite you now to turn on the metacognition, be aware, and pay attention to what it is that you're thinking. Now, for one of the first principles, keep the metacognition turned on. Okay, and I'll remind you about that at times because you'll forget about it really quickly. To introduce this first principle, I would love to share with you a friend of mine, Aaron Linsdau, wrote this book, Antarctic Tears. Aaron is nuts, which he always appreciates it when a clinical psychologist declares that on camera or from the front of the room. But here's what he did. Aaron trekked solo from the Hercules Inlet on the coast of Antarctica to the South Pole. A distance of over 700 miles. He did it on his own power, all by himself, in the most unforgiving climate on the planet. When I had Aaron on my show, Live on Purpose Radio, he shared with me something that I think is worth talking about. He said, and I was asking him about survival. I said, Aaron, does this apply in all kinds of environments? You know, we're talking about mindset and the importance of that. And he says, oh yes, when it comes to survival, water is number 4 on the survival list. The number 1 thing if you wish to survive is a positive attitude. Which got me really excited because positivity, that's what I'm all about. And he's like, yeah, isn't that convenient? What he's talking about here is what we decide in our own mind makes a huge difference in how we can survive. Now, it applies to all other kinds of aspects or all other aspects of our life. But he is talking about survival, and especially in a polar environment, he's probably the number 1 leading expert in the world, on the planet, about surviving in that kind of an environment. In fact, Aaron shared with me that there was a man who got lost in the woods outside of his home in Jackson, Wyoming. This is where Aaron lives currently. And this man was found. His body was found, I think 72 hours later. He had appropriate clothing. He had food on his person. He had enough to survive, but he perished out there. A woman was lost in the same area wearing only running shorts and a t-shirt. A couple of weeks later, she walked out under her own power. What is the difference? In all fairness, we didn't interview the dead guy, so we're not sure. But Aaron speculates, and I think he's right, that these two had a very different mindset. When you decide that there's no hope, what's the next step? Yeah. So where we start with our own mindset sets us up to either succeed or fail. Now, you've heard it a gazillion times. Just think positive. What does that mean? We're going to dig into that in this module because that's the foundational principle upon which everything else will be built in this course. So starting this out, let's take a look at this diagram. On this line, you see what it is. It's a bidirectional arrow. What it is, and you've heard it is what it is. Yeah, does that annoy you? Probably depends on who's saying it and why. For this course, all it means is where you are, what you have, it's who you're with. It's the way things are right now without changing anything. It is what it is. This will make a whole lot more sense if I put it into a context for you. Last summer, I had the privilege and opportunity of speaking for the National Speakers Association in the Youth Leadership Conference. And while I was there, I had a chance to listen to this lady. This is Jeannie Robertson. And if you haven't heard of Jeannie yet, do yourself a favor. Go to YouTube, look up her channel. She is the funniest G-rated, family-friendly comedian on the planet. 6'2", thick Southern accent. She's just a delightful lady. And I got to sit right here. This picture shows that I took this picture with my iPhone. I'm right here. I'm on the front row with Jeannie Robertson. Well, Jeannie is sharing with us how to use humor in your presentations and just doing a fantastic job. She's about ready to wrap up when I get a text message. Now, I got to share with you something about Jeannie. When you're sitting on the front row in Jeannie Robertson's presentation, you don't pull out your phone. Okay? If you're checking your text messages, she's going to have a conversation with you. You know what I'm talking about, right? Or if you get up to go to the bathroom, she has a little conversation with you on your way out. I didn't want that to happen right now. Besides, it would be rude, right? So I leave my phone in my backpack under my chair, but I get a little notification on my Fitbit. Let me show you what it said. This is a screenshot of the actual text message. Now, on your Fitbit, it comes through as a truncated, kind of an abbreviated message, right? So if you can read this, it's from my sister. My sister Melanie sends me this text. I wanted you to know that Talon had an accident last night. He was on his annual volunteer first responder TIMP weekend and slipped and fell off a 30-foot ... And that's all I got. That's it. And I'm thinking, what has happened? Now, I'm not going to pull out my phone right now. Besides, Jeannie's about ready to wrap up and I can slip out in the hall in just a sec. But my mind, my thoughts go where? Kind of where yours are going, right? And I thought of Talon. Now, this is a picture of Talon. My niece Katrina, their little baby Sage. This picture was taken about 2 weeks before the accident. And naturally, my mind and my heart are going to this little family that I love. And I'm wondering what has happened. What's going on? My own father lost his dad in an accident when Dad was only 5 years old. Okay, I have a good friend, crashed his plane in Utah Lake, just a few miles from my office here, about 10 years ago, leaving his wife and children without a husband and father. This is where my mind is going as I'm thinking about this sweet little family. Now, Jeannie wraps up. I can't even remember what she said after that. I'm sure it was brilliant. But my mind was so distracted, I was just waiting for an opportunity to slip out into the hall. When Jeannie finished up, I slipped out, I pulled out my cell phone, and here's the rest of the text. Now let's pick up where we left off here. Slipped and fell off a 30-foot waterfall and broke both his ankles and seriously injured his knee. They could use your prayers. How did you feel when I shared the rest of the text with you? Be honest about that. You're probably a little worried, like, where's Dr. Paul going with this story, right? When I shared the rest of the text with you, how did you feel? Relieved? Yeah, I did. I was so relieved. I called up Katrina on the phone. I said, oh, sweetie, I just heard what happened. She said, thank you, Uncle Paul, for calling. We are just so grateful. Okay, I got to ask you this. Was she pretending to be grateful? Were you pretending to be relieved? No. It's real, isn't it? And my feeling was real, and I felt so relieved and grateful that it was this. Now, it's important to understand why our mind can do this. All right? So check it out. Let's go to this next slide. It is what it is. Do you remember we talked about that? It is what it is. And what it is 2 broken ankles. In fact, compound fractures. Both ankles. Got it? It is what it is. Okay. What is our mind doing with that? The first process that we're going to talk about here today is evaluation. And you can't turn this off any more than you can turn off gravity. It's always on. You have to do it. Evaluation means judgment. And what's going to happen is your mind is going to take what it is, no matter what it is, and judge it, evaluate it. The word evaluation itself implies comparison with some standard. But notice that you're constantly judging. You judge yourself, don't you? Oh yeah, you do. You judge your spouse, your family. You judge your job, your boss, your coworkers. You judge your circumstances. You're judging me. It's cool, I'm judging you too. Because we can't turn it off. Just notice this. Now, in comparing what we've got to some standard, we have to have that standard, right? Am I a tall man? Well, you may have no idea. Here I am sitting in front of the camera. Would it help if I showed you a picture? I think it would help. Let me show you this picture. Here we go. I'm the one on the right. Am I a tall man? You guys, I'm 6'2". And even that is a standard. You know what 6'2" is. You compare me to that and you know kind of how tall I am. But my buddy Mark Eaton, who used to play center for the Utah Jazz and is part of our National Speakers Association Mountain West chapter, 7'4". Yeah, freak of nature. Well, and a very decent human being as well. But when you compare me to Mark Eaton, I'm a shrimp. So am I a tall man? Here's what I want you to notice. Your answer to that depends on the standard that you choose to compare me to. And if you don't have a standard, you'll make one up. And you got a pretty darn good imagination. So just notice that you're doing it. Keep the metacognition turned on. Let's go back to the model. It is what it is. And what it is 2 compound fractures. Both ankles. Now, can you imagine anything better than that? Oh, you can. Yeah, like what? Like one broken ankle, right? How about just a sprained ankle? That would be. How about no broken ankles? How about no accident occurs? How about everything goes just like I planned it to? Right? Because that's how my life rolls. Not. That's la la land. But you can imagine it and notice that you've got a really good imagination. Okay, now, what happens when we compare what we've got to compound fractures of the ankles and we compare that to something better, like no accident occurs? How do we feel about what we've got? Now in this slide, notice that the red arrow shows you the direction of your comparison. The negative is how you feel. When we compare what we've got to something better than what we've got, we feel worse. This isn't rocket science. Okay, it's brain science. It's a different thing. But notice that happens. Now, you are never wrong about how you feel. Can I repeat that? You are never wrong about how you feel. How you feel is 100% consistent with the way your own mind is doing this process. And notice that the reason for it has to do with your own evaluation of what it is. Okay, now you're probably getting ahead of me, aren't you? Let's go the other direction. 2 compound fractures. Can you imagine anything worse? Yes, you can. And I helped you with this because I told you about my dad and I told you about my buddy who crashed his plane in Utah Lake, right? You can imagine something worse, and you were imagining something worse as I talked you through that experience. The death of a young father on Timpanogos? Wow, that would be worse, right? Instant death. How about this? Slow, painful death. Yeah, and we find him next spring. Yeah, well, am I sick that I can think of these things? No, you can too, can't you? And it's not that we're sick and wrong, it's that we're human. And we can always imagine something worse. Now, when we take what it is, 2 broken ankles, and we compare it in our imagination to something worse, how do we feel about what we've got? Woohoo! Now, this green arrow in this slide represents the direction of the comparison. The little plus sign is how you feel. And notice that you're not making this up. You are never wrong about how you feel. How you feel is 100% consistent with the way your own mind is doing this process. And we're not making it up. Okay, that's huge. Let that sink in for just a minute. When we look at the whole model, check it out. We've got arrows going both directions on this one. It is what it is. It could always be better. It could always be worse. Wait, is that true? I don't want you to take my word for this. You run it through your own filters of truth and see if it's true, because this is important before we move forward. What it is always between better and worse. Is that true? Because if that's true, then no matter what this is, no matter how bad things seem, for example, it could always be worse, right? Yes. Is that true the other direction? No matter how good things seem, it could always be better. Do you see it? This is important. Now, here's the other thing that I want you to test out. What it is all you got. That's it. Everything better, everything worse, all imaginary. What it is the only thing you've got that's real. And you don't always get to pick what it is. You've probably noticed this too, right? Sometimes it just happens to us. But what it is always between better and worse. That implies that we have some choice in which way we look to make our comparison. And that's going to determine how we feel. Cool, huh? Now let's take a look at something that we can do. I'm calling this the gratitude triple play. And this is one of your challenge tasks for this module. I'll come back to that in just a minute. The gratitude triple play is where you take a 5-day experiment here, okay? And I don't know how many days you're going to wait between these modules. Try a 5-day experiment where on each of those 5 days you come up with 3 things. This is the triple play part. 3 things for which you are sincerely grateful. And I don't want you to make it up. It's got to be real. If you don't feel gratitude for it, it doesn't make your list, okay? You got to actually be grateful for it. 3 things every day. And don't repeat anything on tomorrow's list that was on today's list. Whole new list tomorrow. 3 things. Now, here's what's going to power it up. You get 1 freebie. 1 freebie each day. And what I mean is it's easy to feel grateful for those things that are already awesome. puppies and rainbows and health and family and indoor plumbing. Okay, you get one of those every day. The other two have to be about something that's kicking your trash. Okay? Something that is difficult, frustrating, painful, annoying. You pick one of those things from your life, and if you can't find something, we'll arrange to get you something. Pick one of those and put something on your list that you're grateful for about or from that. Two of those every day. Okay, now what do I mean by that? Let's take cancer, for example. Whatever your cancer is. And most families in America are dealing with this at some level. But it could be a financial issue. It could be a relationship problem, whatever. Cancer hit our family. Last year, my sister-in-law, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, 2 months from diagnosis to funeral. What if it's cancer? How can I be grateful for that? Now, I'm not saying you have to be grateful for the cancer. What I'm saying is open it up. Okay, peel it back, look around inside of there, and you rummage around until you find something for which you really can be grateful and are grateful. And for me, I found this relationship with my niece. 20 years old, special needs. She got to live with us while her mother passed. Am I grateful for that relationship? Yeah. Am I grateful for the cancer? Well, that's harder, but that's where I found it. That's what I'm talking about. This will change the game, folks. Gratitude triple play. Now, the other reason this is so important is because we've got another process to talk about. This next process is called creation. So on this slide, you'll see the same line with what it is. It could always be better, it could always be worse. But now we're going to the top side of this model and talking about creation. It's another task that we ask our mind to do. And it's a totally separate task from evaluation, but they're tied together. I'll come back to that in just a minute. Creation of what is to be. Not what is, that already exists. I'm talking about creation of what is to be, and that doesn't exist yet because we haven't created it yet. Now, let's test our creative powers for just a minute. I'm going to send you, you're going to pause the video for, let's say, a half hour. I'll give you a half hour to go out there. You use your creative mind, and you can collaborate with people if you want to or work on your own. I don't care. But go out there and somehow, in a half hour, make your life worse. Okay, are you in? No, right? Please don't do this. Would you ever do this? On purpose, I mean. We do it accidentally all the time, right? But notice how quickly your mind came up with half a dozen ways to pull that off. And it wouldn't even take a half hour, would it? No. Why can we imagine all of these ways that our life could be worse? It's not for the purpose of creation. We can imagine something worse. Sure, that's so that we can see that we're not there. And what we've got is pretty good compared to that. That's an evaluation tool. When we get to creation mode, we want to look the other way. We're going to imagine now something better, because what do you want to create? What if I gave you 2 choices? You got to pick one of these, okay? You can have something better or something worse than what you've already got. Which one do you want? Duh. Of course you want something better. So when we get to creation mode, we're going to shift that way and look at what could be better. Check it out. When we imagine that what's coming is worse. See the direction of the arrow? That red arrow takes us to a feeling. Now, notice this. You don't know. You don't know. How are you doing next week? Oh, you don't know. You've got something to do with it. I want you to latch onto that idea, but you don't know. So how you're doing in the future, totally imaginary. And when you imagine that what's coming is better or worse, it changes your feeling. When you imagine that what's coming is worse than what you've already got, how do you feel? This slide represents anxiety. That is 23 years of clinical experience in a nutshell. When we imagine, because we don't know, that what's coming is worse, we feel anxiety, nervousness, fear. What happens alternatively when we imagine that what's coming, because we don't know, but when we imagine that what's coming is better than what we've already got, how do we feel? Yeah. This is hope. This is where we get to reasonably anticipate that our life is going to go through an upgrade. And how does that feel? You don't know. So you have to pick a position. Let's put the whole line up. You'll notice this looks a lot like the evaluation side of things, but on the top of the bar, it's got a completely opposite focus. Think of it this way for just a minute. A hammer, for example. You know, when you use a hammer, it's got those two ends to it. It's got a blunt face for the purpose of driving nails, right? And then it's got a claw on the other end for the purpose of pulling them out. You don't use a claw to pound a nail. And you can't use the face to pull one out. It doesn't work that way. Similarly, we've got these two ends to our imagination. We can always imagine something better, and we can always imagine something worse. Two ends of the same tool, our imagination. You have to use the right end of the tool for the right job. We can imagine something worse, sure. That's so that we can see that we're in a good place. That's an evaluation end of that tool. We can see that things could be better. That's not for beating ourselves up because we're not there yet. And newsflash, you never will be. Wait a minute, Dr. Paul, what are you saying? I'll never... No, check it out. Where are you? You're here. You're not there. Ever. Can I make improvement? Sure. And then where am I? I'm here. It's a new here, but I'm still not there. It could always be better. Let's quit beating ourselves up because we're not there yet and use that end of the tool for the right job to create what is to be. And that's a really great reason to use that end of our imagination so that we can imagine all those upgrades and go create them. We're going to dive into that in Module 3, how we create things. So you'll see how that works even more clearly. Notice that it can go both directions. Now, another brain hack for you. Any Star Wars fans out there? BB-8, little droid from Star Wars. This is going to remind us of the next brain hack. Okay, and this is a creation brain hack. How sure are you that 8 o'clock is coming? I don't even care what time you're watching this. It might be a few minutes before 8. It might be a few minutes after 8. It might be in the middle of the night. I don't know. Whenever you're watching this, just take a look at the clock. How sure are you that 8 o'clock is coming? Oh, pretty darn sure? Yeah, me too. Okay. How sure are you that you are going to be around for 8 o'clock? Almost as sure? Okay, good. Check it out. You've got a 100% track record so far. You've made it to every 8 o'clock your entire life, and there's 2 every day for those of you who don't get up early. So notice that. Now, if 8 o'clock is coming, and if you're going to be around for 8 o'clock, there's only 2 options. I used to think there were 3. I eliminated the third one because I don't think it's possible for things to be exactly the same at 8 o'clock as they are right now. At the very least, you're going to be a little older, aren't you? Yeah, you might be more hungry, more tired. I don't know. Depends on what you did just before 8. Things aren't going to be the same. And by your own evaluation, which you cannot turn off. This is gravity, folks. This is a principle. It's always on. By your own evaluation, things have to be at 8 o'clock either better or worse than they are right now. We already know you could make things worse. Please don't do this. BB8 stands for better by 8. You got it? Can you do this? How does that feel? Can you think of something that you could do? Pick some aspect of your life. I don't care what it is. Pick some aspect of your life. Is there something you could do to make sure that things are better by 8? Either a little or a lot. I don't care. Just some upgrade, How does that feel? Yeah. See? That creates a little bit of hope and some control. We'll dig more into both of those in upcoming modules. But I think it's important to acknowledge this. What we do in evaluation mode, look at this slide for a moment. You'll see there are 2 red arrows in this one. I've got the evaluation and the creation. What we do in evaluation mode matters. When we start from a place in evaluation of, oh, my life sucks, and we're depressed and defeated and feeling inadequate and like nothing's ever good enough, how likely are you to go do something productive? Not so much. You are more likely to make a mess. This is when people yell at the spouse and kick the dog. It's not helping. Alternatively, when we start, look at this slide, from a position of gratitude, from a positive evaluation of what it is, and we feel that energy and that power, then how likely are we to go do something productive? Yeah. What we do in evaluation mode matters. And it helps to power up and give us the currency for what we're going to purchase in the creation mode. That's huge. So we start from a positive place. Here's the entire model. Now, you're going to recognize this because as part of the course, you get a copy of Portable Positivity. Portable Positivity is a quick read, okay? It fits in your pocket. I made this small so that you can consume it very quickly. And in this book, we go through a little step-by-step description of the whole model that I just shared with you. Okay, so this is your review for what we've covered in today's module, Portable Positivity. And in the back, you'll find a picture of the entire graph as I've shown it on this slide. There it is. Now, as we get into the challenge tasks for this particular module, you'll see those on this slide. The Module 1 challenge tasks, I want you to read Portable Positivity. You've already got the model. That's what we've been talking about here today. Portable Positivity will give you a way to review that. And you can also share this. There's a portablepositivity.com. Portablepositivity.com. If you want to refer it to someone else, they can get their own copy of the book there. Here's a few other challenge tasks for this module. I want you to subscribe to Live on Purpose TV. This is easy to do. You just go to YouTube, look up Live on Purpose TV on YouTube, click subscribe. Because as part of this course, while you're taking these 6 modules, I would love to have you watching at least 5 episodes per week. Why? Because I want more viewers, of course. No, that's not the reason. It's because this is a way to power up your own positivity. And what you're putting into your mind matters. So I'm putting out new episodes every week for you to access some content that will help you to stay in a positive evaluation and creation mode. So subscribe to Live on Purpose TV, 5 episodes a week. You got it? Those are 10 to 15 minutes each. So you're going to want to carve out some time every day for your personal development. Subscribe to Live on Purpose Radio. This is a podcast. These are a little longer episodes. I'm asking you to consider 1 per week. As you listen to these interviews that I'm doing with inspiring people like Aaron Linsdau that I introduced earlier in this module, you will find ideas and you will connect with these different guests that are on the show in ways that will inspire and enlighten you. And please share Live on Purpose TV and Live on Purpose Radio with anybody that you're connected to. Let's spread this positivity message. Now, the other 2 challenge tasks I've already given you. One is the gratitude triple play. Remember, for 5 days, you're going to come up with a list of 3 things that you're grateful for every day, 1 freebie, 2 from the hard list. And then you will also do better by 8. Do it for the same 5 days. Think about it. If you were to do better by 8 for 5 days, you get 10 upgrades to your life. 10 improvements between now and when you finish this assignment. Give it a try. Find an accountability partner. Someone in your family, a friend, someone that you can share what you're learning with. And I would strongly encourage you to get a personal coach, because for each module, talking to your coach about what you're learning and what the insights are and how to apply these principles directly to you is a great way to solidify the learning and to keep moving forward with your personal development program.